Strap on your time-traveling pajamas because we are heading back to the ancient and glorious days of the Magic the Gathering German Renaissance.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends! I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a true treat. We are going to be doing a historical opening of German Renaissance. And if you didn't know, this is a very weird beast. It is a Chronicles offshoot, and real quick, if you don't know what Chronicles was, it was a reprint set charmingly called a compilation set, created all the way back in 1995. The idea being to take a bunch of harder to find cards and reprint them to increase availability. Now, we did a Japanese Chronicles opening video recently as part of this series, and the Japanese Chronicles are 1-to-1. And by that I mean every English card in Chronicles is printed in Japanese in black border, and they are identical. Whereas this is a far different beast because multiple of the sets that were in the original Chronicles were actually already printed in German. They decided to mix up the card collation in terms of what was available in this set, right? So in the original Chronicles, you had 14 different Arabian Night cards. This version offers 10 different Arabian Nights cards. The original Chronicles had 21 different cards from Antiquities. This has 23. Legends, the original Chronicles had 71. This has 55 different cards from Legends. And in terms of the Dark, you go from having 19 in the original to 32 different cards from the Dark inside German Renaissance. Plus, German Renaissance offers something that none of the other Chronicles variants does, and that is the fact that they have two different unlimited cards that are also printed as part of the set, making it a very odd duck. And unlike the original Chronicles, which came with 12 cards in a pack, these only come with 8 cards in a pack. So, like we did with the Chronicles for Japanese, I'm going to open this without knowing what the cards are. I'm going to guess what they are, and we will put the images up on the screen for you to enjoy as well. Now that we've covered all that, let's dive in and see what's in this pack. And here we have the booster pack. Soak it in all of its glory. Magic Die Zusammengeunift. All right, I am not good at pronouncing things. 8 Spielkarten. This is pretty funky. Ein Spiel von Richard Garfield. And then on the back, we've got all the sort of normal legal notifications going on here. And down at the bottom, we have the different symbols of the sets that are included in here. Antiquities, Arabian Nights, Legends, and the Dark. Very nice. The pack itself is pretty loose overall. Now, let us actually dive in. You know what I'm going to... Oh, cool! Really? Mishra's Factory right out of the get-go. You know what? In the last video, I feel like there was too much shakiness with the opening, so let me do it this way, where we'll just leave the pile of cards on the table, and I'll take them off one by one. So, this is Mishra's Factory. This is a powerhouse old card, originally from Antiquities. It taps to produce a colorless mana. For 1 generic mana, it turns into a 2/2 factory worker, or I should say assembly worker. It turns into a 2/2 assembly worker until end of turn, and tap it to give target assembly worker +1/+1 until end of turn. These were a massive deal in the original days of Magic. The first man lands that were incredibly versatile, could go into any deck because it only costs 1 mana to activate them. They ended up, this bonus here with the +1/+1 meant you could turn this into a blocker, use it to block a 2/2, and then tap to make itself a 3/3. You could obviously use it just to pump other ones that you get of this as well, but this is really cool. They actually did 4 different seasons. So this is the autumnal version of it, and I have to say, this evokes ancient, old school Magic memories so well. What a fantastic card to be welcomed into the German Renaissance with. That is very nice, and still good enough that people desire these, right? So let's see what we've got after that. Then we've got Holmenschkin. Holmenschkin. All right. So this is Cave People, if I'm not mistaken. And Cave People is 2 red and 1 for a 1/4. And what is it? 2 red and tap to give target creature mountain walk. So I think they like lead people through the caves. And when it's attacking, it gets +1/-2. So I think how it works is on the attack, it's a 2/2. Otherwise, it hangs out just in the cave waiting. But it's also got the ability, if you pay 2 red and 1, tap them, and you make a creature unblockable for the turn. So it's like, psst, yo, come on, come with me. I'm the whole mention, and I shall take you where you need to be. Oh, look at this. Beschwörung von Hohlmenschen. That's awesome. This is cool. So, I believe that is cave people. It's kind of trickier with the cards that are genuinely awful. So, I can say that. I can say this card is terrible no matter what. I may not have the abilities right, but I'm 100% right about how terrible it is. Look at the artwork, man. It's pretty simple, but at the same time, it's interestingly evocative, right? You've got the lines of this kind of, what is it, a sandstone cave or whatever? And you've got the hole in mention, the cave people, just sitting there squat in the darkness, right? And so it's like they're harder to perceive, they're harder to hit because they're in the cave, they've got a higher toughness, but also they don't want to come out of the cave. So they're just kind of poking out of there, only doing 1 damage. But then all of a sudden, it just comes loping out of the cave towards you, swinging at you. Although, you know what? Now that I think about the flavor of this kind of doesn't make sense. If he can direct people through the caves and make them unblockable, then why can't he do it himself? I guess because you need the mana infusion altogether. I don't know. A little bit of a flavor quirk there. Let's move on. Goodbye, Hole Mention. Sandstorm. Could they make it any easier? This is Sandstorm, originally from Arabian Nights. 1 green instant, which in German is Spontenzauber. That is awesome! Dude, German cards rule. All right. So what does the text say? Der Sandstorm. No, I'm not even going to try. Never mind. Okay, so this does 1 damage to all attacking creatures. And it's really funky to see Arabian Night cards reprinted like this. When they did the original Chronicles, the cards didn't have this level of nice saturation to the artwork, whatever you want to call it. This artwork has a lot of quality color to it. When the original Arabian Nights and older Magic cards, some of them have varying levels of this deep richness to the art. So it's cool to see cards from, like, Arabian Nights is from before I started playing Magic, which is just wild to think about. And it's nice to see this version of it. The artwork is pretty straightforward. Given the idea of the Sandstorm, you've got this soldier and he's trying to move forwards. Look at how heavily he's leaning into it as the sands just rip into his body. There's no way he's going to survive this, right? That's a pretty cool card. Then we've got Stabwalk. Stabwalk is Wall of Dust. And Wall of Dust is 1 red and 2 for a 1/4. And if you didn't know, back in the day, walls have the rule automatically that they have Defender. Defender didn't exist back then. That's current wording. But walls always had the built-in rule that they couldn't attack. It never said it anywhere on a single wall in the game. Just like this card won't say Defender in the version you see on the screen. But just bear in mind that this card is incapable of attacking. And its ability is, as far as I recall, if it blocks a creature, that creature doesn't untap during its next untap phase, right? And that is a pretty interesting concept. The idea of a Wall of Dust is funky because we have Wall of Stone, we have Wall of Ice, we have Wall of Brambles. When you think of all those, you think of solid existing things, right? And even if you go outside of that and move into things like a Wall of Fire or a Wall of Water, it's far more evident how those would be used as a wall. A Wall of Dust, as far as I'm concerned, is very creative on the part of the Planeswalker who has chosen to use this. Is this a naturally forming Wall of Dust that has some level of sentience, or is this just a Wall of Dust created by a wizard? But the idea that dust could be gathered together in such quantity that it could absorb 4 points of damage before being dispersed, that means it could handle like an elephant crashing through, right? That could also just represent its malleability in terms of being able to shift form and like elude around its opponent and maybe change their ability to see to a degree, kind of trapping and guiding them. And maybe that's the representation of the toughness. But I like as well that it has 1 power. Like the dust chokes you and then you get all this like dust inhalation and you have to sit there and try and breathe it all out to survive, right? And that's you waiting the next turn and not being able to untap. That is some really high level flavor, basically delivered in a really tight package. And again, this is one of those old school cards. The stuff from Legends, same kind of deal with that artwork, where this is a much richer version of the artwork, and I appreciate it. Now, let's see what's next. Oh, Twofolsh Machine. This is Diabolic Machine. This is a 7 casting cost, 4/4 artifact creature. 3 mana, it regenerates. It's funny, it just says 3 regeneration, straight up, but it's 3 to regenerate it. And look at the artwork. You can see this dude, like your eyes are always drawn first to this dude here in the grind, in the gears being like ground up. But look, there's 2 big old eyes up here. It took me so long to actually notice these eyes. I thought maybe this dude was the machine, like he was just coming up out of it. It took me a while to realize that this machine is grinding this dude down into nothingness and probably like oiling its cogs with his blood. It's so intense. I mean, by today's standards, clearly, this is an absolutely dreadful card. But for 4/4 for 7 mana, regenerating for 3, it wasn't the worst thing around when it came out in the dark. I actually remember playing with these things. Like, admittedly, I was a noob, but still, that's neat. All right, next we've got, hey, Ironclaw Orcs. Remember how I said at the beginning of the video that there were 2 cards from Unlimited that got put in this set? Ironclaw Orcs were in Unlimited, but they weren't in 4th edition. So for some reason, they decided to include Ironclaw Orcs and Twiddle from Unlimited in German and French Renaissance packs. So here we have Ironclaw Orcs, an absolutely terrible card. 1 red and 1 for a 2/2 that can't block creatures with power greater than 1. So it transmits the concept that orcs are cowardly. It's straight up a worse grizzly bears to kind of give the idea that green is better at creatures and whatever else. But admittedly, it's a garbo card that really only has a special place in some people's hearts because it's from the earliest days of Magic. It was in Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and then they gave it the boot because it's jank. And then they actually ended up bringing it back for some reason for 4th edition, right? It's funny. And actually Twiddle too. Ironclaw Orcs and Twiddle were put into Renaissance because they were being included in 4th edition. And how Magic used to work is the first time a card is printed in each language, it's supposed to be done in black border. So to make sure they followed the rules, Wizards of the Coast had to print Ironclaw Orcs and Twiddle inside of German Renaissance because they were coming out in 4th edition, and otherwise it would be the only cards that had white borders as their first printings, which is not the way things worked back then. Man, things have changed so much. I do love this glance back through Magic's history, and I'm glad we got an Ironclaw Orc in here. Look at that face too. Look at that, just so honestly, he kind of just looks like he's going to play Blood Bowl or something. Like, what's up, man? You could pass me the football, bro. I'm ready to run it down the field. You know what? I don't really think I ever paid attention to these glyphs on the side of the orc. This might be the first time I ever noticed that little side part of the artwork there. This, on this side, what is that? Is that just a signature? No? Okay, no, it must be a flag. I literally never noticed that before. Probably because the card is so awful. And you know what? That's something I've noticed about Magic. If cards are terrible, you won't really look at them. The artwork becomes forgettable. So beautiful pieces of artwork, not this one, but beautiful pieces of artwork end up just kind of going by the wayside. It's nutty how much gorgeous artwork there is in Magic. Anyways, let's move on. We're going to go next to the Sunken City, Versunken Stadt. So, this is a 2-blue enchantment. It gives all blue creatures +1/+1 because we're looking at the stuff from back in the day where Wizards hadn't figured out to just let you have bonuses on your side because it feels way better, right? So, this is across the board. All blue creatures have +1/+1, and it has an upkeep cost of 2 blue. If you don't pay the upkeep cost, you have to sacrifice it. So, this is, like, admittedly an awful card, but it's really hard to get blue like pump spells like this, right? This is another one that really shows how good the older, like Bad Moon in Black, for example. Bad Moon in Black is 1 black and 1, and it's an enchantment that gives all your black creatures +1/+1, and has literally no downside, right? No drawbacks, and is the cheapest of these like boost spells they've ever made to put out at only 1 black and 1. The easiest to cast. So you got to pay 2 blue for this, and you got to pay 2 blue every turn to give your +1/+1 to all your dudes. But that makes sense because blue is the weakest creature color, always has been, and that's one of the few things they did right at the very, very beginning of Magic in terms of blue was so strong at the beginning and had so many different abilities, they gave too much to blue, but they did a good job of mostly keeping blue weak in the creature department. The artwork is, I mean, you can see sunlight kind of floating down from the top, or not floating down, but, you know, piercing down into the depths. There are these kind of stone ornaments. I don't know if those are, like, if that's actually supposed to be a dwelling, like this is actually a full-on sunken city that we're seeing the remnants of, because I'm not sure what the idea behind the artwork was supposed to be, but there's not a lot of details to it. This card, again, maybe because it's not that great, never really screamed out to me. What do we have after that? We've got, oh, we're ending off with the Yoshin Soldier. That's sweet, man. So 3 mana gets you the Yoshin Soldier. This is a 1/4 artifact creature that has vigilance. Obviously, the old school wording does not tap to attack is on here. You can see in the artwork, you've got your little soldier. He's ready to go. He's got his blade extended. He's ready to go to Party Town. And what's really fun about this for me is this is literally tying in to the Brothers War storyline, the Urza story that we're covering right now on Fantasy Geographic. In fact, in the part of the story I'm working on right now, we literally just arrived at Yosha. So the episode of the Brothers War that is coming out later this month will be talking specifically about this city. I love the tie-in. I love the fact that we have now done 2 Chronicles episodes that have both ended off with perfect tie-ins to the Brothers War story, which is my favorite story in all of Magic's history. So, as a result, I'm going to leave a link to that channel and that storyline at the end of this video if you'd like to go and enjoy it. I'm also going to leave a link to the entire playlist of all the historical openings, and I'm going to continue to grow this series. So let me know what you think. If there's something that you'd like to see open that's hard to come by and you have it, send it on in. That'd be a lot of fun. Either way, thanks for coming by. Big shout out to my patrons, and I will see you all, my friends, in the next video.